Okay, so something a bit different, and something I just kind of find interesting to consider. Now, it may be clear I like Transformers. However, I tend to have almost no interest in stuff with giant fighting robots or mechs. Now, the simple answer you could say is just that I don't like robots or giant mechs at all. That's not accurate. I mean, mechs can be fun, however, like the turtle mech from the 2012 TMNT show. That already has the advantage, though, of me liking the Ninja Turtles and not just being a show about a giant robot mech. It's a show about the turtles themselves. So I already had familiarity with the characters. They just ended up adding a mech for an episode or two. Maybe more. I don't remember. As well as I like one of my favorite superheroes is Iron Man. Iron Man having all the way up to 85 marks of his suits, including at least 2 Hulkbuster ones, which are big giant mechs. However, those have a very practical purpose. Those are for the purpose of fighting Hulk. The rest of his armors fit right around him and are a practical size. You could also assume I don't like robots. This is also inaccurate. Some of my favorite Star Wars characters tend to be the droids, like BD-1, the B-1s goofing off, 3PO, R2, so forth. However, those droids also tend to be human-sized or roughly human-sized or smaller. So, why then do I not like the giant fighting robots, but do like the Transformers? Also, I should note there's not gonna really be any, I'm admittedly not putting a bunch of pictures up. I'm probably just gonna be talking this whole time. Anyway, I think it somewhat has to come down to, with the giant fighting robots and mechs, you normally have a human or multiple controlling them. Meanwhile, the Cybertronians are themselves individuals, alongside that the Cybertronians are a whole alien species, and not just just a giant robot that was built, summoned, whatever. So that leads to me. So whereas these just have So take for example their cases for personality. These all have just the personality of the crew, whether it be one person or multiple people. For the most part, from what I understand, maybe a central computer that assists the crew. Cybertronians, however, can be thought of almost more like giant metal humans. They have their own brain, their own personalities. They don't have some smaller person that will just end up being able to leave, and then they just sit there with no personality at all, inactive. They are in and of themselves a whole species that have their own culture. And whereas with the giant fighting robots and mechs, I don't really understand why you can't just it wouldn't be an advantage to basically act like raptors and attack from multiple sides from smaller or more maneuverable armors. I don't see why that's not more effective rather than a big, most likely more clunky robot, unless it's just randomly fast, because that's a lot more mass that you need to deal with. Whereas with Cybertronians, they're a whole species. They're not built just to be some size, just arbitrarily. They are the size that their species is. Which technically is still arbitrary, but the point being, within their society, that is just how they are. It is not big just to look big and massive and impressive. It is just the size they are. But it's probably this ability of them to have a culture and being a whole species and not just being piloted by humans or alien species or whatever that makes me more intrigued as to what Transformers and Cybertronians and such all have going on. They also have the advantage with their toys of being a little bit of a puzzle. Now, admittedly, they have instructions for that puzzle if you really can't figure it out, but they're kind of like a puzzle. But there's also the thing with giant fighting robots and mechs. What stops you from just rebuilding it? Whether it be from the remains or from scratch. With most giant fighting robots and mechs. I can't think of a reason. Again, it's not like I don't like robots. One of my favorite 2012 TMNT characters was Metalhead, who was a robot that I'm pretty sure was roughly either turtle or half turtle sized. Maybe somewhere in between there. But he gets but again, if you have this giant mech, what stops you from just rebuilding it? And now it's back. Oh no, it was destroyed. Oh look, it's back again. Cybertronians specifically have their biology to stop them. If their brain gets destroyed, it is destroyed. You can't just bring it back without some mythical artifact. If their spark, which is basically their heart and soul, gets destroyed, they can't come back without it being some mythical reason. Or you just happen to have a Junkion close by, right around when they pass. But admittedly, the Junkions are very much an exception there because they themselves are almost mythically indestructible in and of themselves because of adapting to living on a junk planet. So they are effectively the best medics ever, and can kind of do what the prime version of RC replies back to Jack about when Jack asked if she could if she was able to build that. Shouldn't she know how to build a motorcycle engine? And her being able to ask, can he build small intestine? The Junkions can kind of do that. And that is specific to them. In relation to, Cybertronian's biology. But it's not something that everyone can do. It's that small sub-faction of Autobots that can do that mainly. Because there's that one Decepticon one that I still don't think looks like a Junkion that much in terms of color. Anyway. Again, what stops... I don't see... and also, giant fighting robots. Admittedly, I'm starting to ramble. But two things that basically the main 2 points that I have is because they are technically, they are a biological species. They are a species. They are not. They have. If I'm remembering correctly, they use the term techno-organic for transformation cog in okay, so it is a give me a second. Where was it? Where is it? Transformation cog is a biomechanism. So they are biological creatures. Their biology is metallic, but they are living creatures with parts of biology where they cannot rebuild it. So there are ways to legitimately end them forever. Minus Starscream into some cases because he happens to have apparently mutated and has a ghost. But with giant fighting robots and mechs, what stops you from just rebuilding otherwise in these other continuities? Well, not continuities. What is the word? Other franchises. What stops you from just rebuilding them? Admittedly, I don't really read much into the other franchises, so I may be completely wrong with pointing it out, and maybe the ones here can't be rebuilt because they have some similar method of being made effectively mortal. But from what I can tell, well, from without that being explained, to me. These feel like you could just rebuild them. So that's the main point 1. Main point 2, again, considering it seems like most of these are built, and I presume by humans, why that big? Realistically, building it that big would only be for the purposes of making it look cool. But it would also kind of just be, as far as I can tell, a tactical disadvantage, unless it somehow is boosting all of the, unless it somehow has some form of weapon that you cannot fit in a smaller sized armor or something. But then explain why. Have something to explain why that doesn't fit there. Explain why the small... I know that at least 2 of these, I'm pretty sure, have multiple ones that merge together to make the final giant robot. Why don't those have enough strength? Is it so that you can just have the big giant robot fight the thing? Because if so, why? Why then? That's just making it be a big giant robot, because big giant robot fighting things look cool. And now I don't have much interest in just having big giant robot fight. I prefer to have because what's the point if it just is to make it look cool? Sure, that's a good thing for shows and such, where it can just be to look cool, and films. That is a valid reasoning. But in the case of giant robots, for me, it doesn't do much for me. So that is why I'm pretty sure that the Cybertronians are specific, each have their distinct personalities and are effectively giant metal humans that are mortal. They can die. They can't be rebuilt from scratch. They can't be rebuilt if you have everything but their core components. Without some mythical thing causing it to getting in the way of the natural process. I think that has to do with why I like Transformers despite not having much care for giant fighting robots and mechs. The elements of humanity and the elements of humanity having them have their own alien civilization, and in general just kind of being something more than just giant fighting robots. More than meets the eye, I guess you could say. I guess I could also note that one of the things that is neat to me is the concept of the vehicle modes are technically supposed to be disguises. though this is technically at this point just a bit of a sidetrack. Since the vehicle modes are or animal modes are supposed to be a disguise, it ends up making it more interesting it gives more interesting possibilities as to is this random vehicle or possibly animal that they're going past potentially a currently unknown member of their species? Are they able to actually hide from that member? Does that member know what they look like in their vehicle mode? It gives them additional fighting styles that are different than just, oh yeah, we're gonna do fist fights or sword fights, or even just blaster fights. They have a bit more variety that they can do. It just, I don't fully know. It's just kind of one of those things where it's kind of it is so, I don't know. It's one of those things where it just is. I guess in a way, just happened to work out that Transformers ended up managing to hit a number of points where it ends up working out, rather than in a way where most giant fighting robots or mechs wouldn't. If you'd like to speak with me on any of this, I could try and explain better. I have never been the best at explaining things. Or you could explain what each of the characters on the other side of this graphic, or even ones that aren't on there, why you like them. If you want, you can try and convince me to watch something. I probably won't, though. to be completely honest, I probably won't just randomly watch something. But if you want, go ahead, explain why you might like them, why you agree with me, why you disagree with me, all of it. If you want to discuss it, go ahead. See you next time.